You're watching Alaska Public Media PBS Kids.
You're watching APT PBS Kids.
You're watching Arizona PBS Kids. You're watching AZPM PBS Kids.
You're watching Both State PBS Kids.
You're watching WNED PBS Kids. You're watching CET PBS Kids. You're watching Detroit PBS Kids. You're watching ET PBS PBS Kids.
You're watching GBH Kids.
You're watching GPB PBS Kids.
You're watching PBS
Hawai'i
PBS Kids.
You're watching Idaho PBS Kids. You're watching IdeaStream PBS Kids. You're watching Iowa PBS Kids.
You're watching Jazz PBS Kids.
You're watching KEDT PBS Kids. You're watching KET PBS Kids. Watching KLRN PBS Kids. Watching KPBS Kids. You're watching KQED PBS Kids. You're watching KTWU PBS Kids. You're watching KUAC PBS Kids. You're watching KVCR PBS Kids. You're watching KVIE PBS Kids. You're watching Lakeland PBS Kids. You're watching Lakeshore PBS Kids.
You're watching LPB PBS Kids.
You're watching Maine Public Broadcasting PBS Kids.
You're watching Montana PBS Kids.
You're watching Maryland Public Television PBS Kids. You're watching Nebraska ETV PBS Kids. You're watching WGBY PBS Kids.
You're watching 9 PBS Kids.
You're watching Northern California Public Media PBS Kids. You're watching NPT PBS Kids. You're watching Oklahoma ETV PBS Kids. You're watching OPB PBS Kids. You're watching Ozarks Public Television PBS Kids. You're watching PBS Charlotte PBS Kids. You're watching PBS Fort Wayne PBS Kids. You're watching KLCS PBS Kids.
You're watching PBS Kansas PBS Kids. You're watching PBS Michiana Kids. You're watching PBS North Carolina PBS Kids.
You're watching PBS SoCal Kids. You're watching Rhode Island PBS Kids. You're watching South Carolina ETV PBS Kids. You're watching South Dakota PTV PBS Kids. You're watching Smoky Hills PBS Kids. You're watching Think TV PBS Kids. You're watching Twin Cities PBS Kids. You're watching Vegas PBS Kids.
You're watching Vermont PBS Kids.
You're watching Vincennes PBS Kids. You're watching WPBA PBS Kids. You're watching WBGU TV PBS Kids. You're watching WCNY PBS Kids.
WEDU PBS Kids.
You're watching WEIU PBS Kids. You're watching Western Reserve PBS Kids. You're watching West Virginia Public Broadcasting PBS Kids. You're watching WETA PBS Kids. You're watching WFSU PBS Kids. You're watching WFYI PBS Kids. You're watching WGVU PBS Kids. You're watching WHRO PBS Kids. You're watching WHUT PBS Kids. You're watching WITF PBS Kids. You're watching WKYU PBS Kids. You're watching WLRN PBS Kids. You're watching WNET PBS Kids. You're watching WOUB Public Media PBS Kids. You're watching WQED PBS Kids. You're watching WSKG PBS Kids. You're watching Tennessee Valley PBS Kids. You're watching WTTW PBS Kids. You're watching WUCF PBS Kids. You're watching WUFT PBS Kids. You're watching WXXI PBS Kids. You're watching New Orleans PBS Kids. You're watching Wyoming PBS Kids. You're watching PBS Kids. You're watching PBS Kids.
You're watching PBS Kids.
You're watching PBS Kids. You're watching PBS Kids.